Okay, indeed, we can start now, and thank you again to join us to today's webinar. Indeed, I'm Valentina Ferrara. I'm Communication and Marketing Manager at Zhaga Consortium, and I'm here with my two colleagues, Jonathan Catchpole, that is the chair of the Technical Coordination Working Group at Zhaga, and the representative of one of our regular member, TE Connectivity, and Martin Krozen, the chair of the Booking Group in the Zhaga Consortium, a representative of our regular member Signify. Before giving the floor to them, I want to indeed share with you some rules of today's webinar, just to make sure indeed you can follow the webinar in the best way. The session is recorded and we will share slides and recording, let's say tomorrow after the webinar. So you don't need to take notes, write down everything that is on the slide. And we foresee a Q&A session at the end of the webinar when you can share indeed, ask all your questions to our expert, and you can share the questions via the chat. So in the meantime, while you follow the webinar, if you want, feel free to use the chat to interact with us, add already your question, or for instance, let us know where you are connecting from. We are happy to see indeed where you come from. I know that some of you, we saw indeed the registrant list, are very well aware of the activity of Zhaga, but some indeed are new faces, or let's say names in this case. And so we decided needed to start with a short video that we made about Zhaga Consortium that explain indeed our activities. It's a 2-minute video, so hold on, and we see each other at the end.
Zhaga is an open global lighting industry organization set up by a number of leading lighting companies in 2010. It currently has over 500 members, including luminaire manufacturers, LED module makers, suppliers of materials and components, and testing laboratories. These Zhaga members aim to standardize interfaces of components of LED luminaires to ensure that components from different suppliers will fit and work together as intended. The scope includes LED light engines, LED modules, LED arrays, holders, LED drivers, connectors, and smart sensing or communication modules. The work of Zhaga drives the availability of interoperable components by multiple suppliers. This provides luminaire makers with ample choice and means the end user is not reliant on the original supplier if maintenance or replacement is required. These Zhaga interface specifications are known as Zhaga books and define the necessary conditions for interoperability by specifying electrical, mechanical, optical, thermal, and communication interfaces. Zhaga books address products that are typically used in office, industry, retail, hospitality, and outdoor applications. With the increasing trend towards smart and connected lighting systems, and the rise of sustainability regulations with circularity requirements, the latest Zhaga books enable both smartness and serviceability. Upgrading and servicing LED luminaires with latest generation technology and connecting them to software management systems is now possible, resulting in smart specifications for intelligent interfaces between luminaires and sensor or communication modules for outdoor and indoor applications. The Zhaga Consortium offers certification for luminaires and components of LED luminaires and a logo licensing program. The Zhaga certification logo identifies a product has been tested by an authorized test center and fully complies with all the requirements of one of the Zhaga books. For more information on Zhaga, please visit our website.
Perfect. So now indeed that you are all familiar with what Zhaga does, I go back in introducing the speakers of today, our expert. I give the floor to them, Jonathan and Martin. How are you today?
Fine. Very well. Thank you.
Great. Then indeed I give the floor to Martin that starts the first presentation. Go ahead, Martin.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Good to see people, familiar people in the call, but also new faces. Now, what's Zhaga Book 18? I think it's already quite known, but it may be good to also start with the title. The title of the book we call the standards what we write books. The title is Smart Interface Between Outdoor Luminaires and Sensing and Communication Modules. So actually, when I want to explain it to people not so familiar, I say it's kind of a USB sensor, a USB interface for outdoor luminaires. Now, why are we making that analogy? Because it's really defining the standardized interface for outdoor LED luminaires and thereby facilitating a seamless integration with interoperable. And that word is important, interoperable sensing and communication modules. So we really aim for a plug-and-play fashion as we are used to in the USB world. So that's the first one. So next to the definition of the standard, we also have a certification program around it. We call it the Zhaga D4I certification program. We will explain later much more details on this. It's actually a combination of a 4-pin Zhaga physical interface and a standardized D4I communication protocol, where we collaborate with the DALI Alliance. Now, next to the certification program, we have a local licensing program, so that also communicates to end users that you really can guarantee you have a future-proof solution for your luminaires and your modules, and that offers you peace of mind for installations which typically last for many, many years. So this is really a value for the market. Now, what it also simplifies is the transition to the smart city infrastructures, because you can allow and you can upgrade your systems later on. You don't need to do that at day 0, but you can do that later on, allowing sensors and communication capabilities to be added to existing fixtures, and you don't need to do a lot of expensive retrofitting. It's really easy to upgrade. Okay, so that's as an introduction, and now Jonathan will take over.
Thank you, Martin. So before we get into what's new in edition 4, I just wanted to give you a brief history of what Zhaga has done with Book 18. So each edition has been a significant upgrade to the book and has meant different certification programs and different devices can be certified. We first released edition 1 of Book 18 back in 2017. This was a mechanical fit system. It defined that mechanical interface. It did go some way to identifying what the contacts in the connector would be used for, but no further. 2019 was when we released edition 2, and this was more of a system approach. So this defined the 2-node architecture. It standardized again, the mechanical interface was standardized. The wiring structure, the internal wiring structure of the luminaire was standardized. The communication protocol, this was very important. We liaised with DALI to create the D4I protocol, which baked in the hierarchy between a type A device and a type B device. And we also defined the power budget, so how much power has to be delivered from the auxiliary power supply and the DALI bus power supply, and how much power consumption the control device can consume. We complemented that in October 20 with the certification program for the control devices. This then meant that we had a system approach with fully certifiable parts of that system. This was beneficial to the end user, so no longer did tenders need to write great big specifications. They can just define Zhaga Book 18 and certified products, and they will have confidence that those products will work together. Then in 2021, back in April, we released edition 3 of Book 18. This spoke to the hybrid architecture. So up until now, we'd spoken about the Zhaga interface on the top and the Zhaga interface on the bottom. The hybrid architecture brought in the ANSI or NEMA dimming receptacles. We never disallowed it, but we hadn't instructed luminaire manufacturers, for example, how to wire those up. So that was covered in edition 3. And then this month, we have now released edition 4 of book 18 that is incorporating other luminaire form factors. You can move on, please. So what's new in edition 4? So up until now, editions 1 to 3 of book 18 worked well on Cobra heads. There's lots of horizontal surfaces that you could mount interfaces on quite conveniently. But this isn't the case for decorative and heritage type luminaires that we're showing here. So with these types of form factors, there was less convenient spaces to mount interfaces and therefore plug in control devices. So what edition 4 does is now allow for a pole mounted bracket assembly, and there are some issues with introducing that. So editions 1 to 3 didn't allow for the Dali bus to come out of the luminaire. One of the reasons for that was because of long cable lengths can introduce surges onto those devices, onto the signal lines, and could cause issues for the control devices. So we've now dealt with that in edition 4. Here is an example. So there's just a couple of images showing bracket assemblies from one of our member companies. We don't, edition 4 doesn't standardize the actual bracket in any way. It's mounting to the pole, its form, its shape. It just defines the Zhaga interfaces that can be used on these bracket assemblies and the keep out zones. So we've allowed for design freedom. We've allowed for member companies to design brackets to meet the aesthetics of the luminaires that they're going to be paired with. So on the screen now is an architecture of edition 4 luminaire and pole. So what we're imagining now is that we will have bracket, what we're defining as bracket luminaire, bracket ready luminaires, and there's certain additional features that they will need to have. Yes, additional features that they will need to have. We're imagining that to connect the bracket assembly to the luminaire, installers will be running cables down the length of the pole and connecting them at the access door at the fuse disconnect box. This means that you're going to have long cable lengths, and you're typically going to have the mains power and the Dali bus and the 24-volt rail in close proximity to each other. We've shown that there's not an issue with capacitively coupling between the power and the signal lines, but there is an issue with them being magnetically coupled. So if there is a surge on the mains power, which happens on infrastructure, either through bad weather or some kind of short circuit on the network somewhere, that surge on the mains line can be induced onto the signal lines and could cause issues with the Dali input and the 24 input lines for the drivers and the control devices. So again, we've liaised with the Dali Alliance and we've specified surge protection devices that fit to the Dali bus lines and the 24-volt rails. These meet the requirements of Dali, so they don't affect the Dali timings, but provide protection to the control devices and the drivers. So you'll see here on this image, you'll need to have surge protection devices at either ends of the cable length. So we're allowing for surge protection devices in the bracket, in the pole mounted bracket assemblies, and in the luminaires as well. You'll see that this is a connectorized solution, and we've got different polarization keys, and I'll speak about that on the next slide. So edition 4 allows for different configurations, and I've listed the 3 here. So you can see configuration 1 is where you have no interface on the luminaire, and you can have 2 interfaces on the bracket assembly. Configuration 2 allows for 1 interface on the luminaire itself, and then 1 on the bracket assembly. Or configuration 3 is you can just have a single interface on the bracket and nothing on the luminaire. So what we've done with the connectorization is we've built in polarization keys, and there's 2 polarization keys. And this gives us control over how many interfaces are in the system. As many of you are probably aware, the D4I communication protocol allows for a maximum of 2 control devices on a street light, and the use of polarization keys and connectors allows us to control that we stick to that maximum of 2. So we have polarization keys, for example, that limit a bracket assembly with 2 interfaces being plugged into a bracket-ready luminaire with 1 interface on there, and therefore being 3 interfaces in total. Move on to the next slide. So this now means for certification that we'll have new devices that can be certified. So as I said earlier, we now introduce the term bracket ready luminaire, and these can be certified. So a bracket luminaire will have to have a surge protection device that meets the requirements of DALI Part 151. And it will need to have the connector available, as well. So all the imageries I've shown so far shows a 6-core cable, so with the power and signal in the same cable. But we also do allow for 2 3-core cables, so you can have the mains in one cable and the DALI and the 24-volt rail in the other cable. But the signal lines do need to have the connector on there so that we can limit the amount of interfaces in the system, as I said before. So bracket ready luminaires will be Zhaga D4I certified, and now we'll be able to also certify the brackets themselves. So the brackets will need to have their surge protection devices in there. Again, they will need to conform to the DALI Part 151, and they will need to have a connector on them as well to be able to qualify for that. Like I said, we've also we liaised with DALI to create DALI Parts 151 and 152. So DALI Part 151 speaks about the requirements of the surge protection devices, and DALI Part 152 talks about the robustness needed for the control devices to meet the requirements of this system. And on that note, I'll hand back over to Martin for to talk about our certification programs.
Yeah, thanks, Jonathan. Indeed, now a bit more information on the certification process, because we also get quite a bit of questions on the practicalities of the certification process. So actually, the process for certification for the bracket ready luminaires is not different as from the standard Zhaga D4I luminaires. And also one message up front: you don't need to ship luminaires, because that's also a question we get a lot. You don't need to ship physical devices across the world to one of the test centers. That's not needed. So what you need to do is to submit the documentation to the selected Zhaga test center. We will show you in a minute which are the authorized test centers, because that can differ per book, but we will show you for book 18. So you submit the documentation, the test house, the test center will check if the documentation is complete and compliant and with the Zhaga specification. And when that's the case, you will get a certificate and you are allowed to use the Zhaga D4i logo on your product. So that's in short how it will work for luminaires. In case of the modules, which you should see on the next slide, it's not much more difficult. You only need to do one extra step because you have to approach first DALI, the DALI Alliance. So there, either you can do that by self-testing, or also there, DALI accredited test house can do the test for you. Then these results will be, when you do it yourself, this has to be shipped to the DALI Alliance. They also verify these results. And then you will get the D4i certification, and you will also be added to the database of the DALI Alliance. Now, as the next step, then you have to submit all the information to the Zhaga test center. They are the same. It will be checked for the compliance against the Zhaga specifications, and when everything is fine, you will get a certificate, and you are allowed to use the Zhaga D4i logo. So that's a bit a similar setup. And that's, we wanted to show this because we got a lot of questions also during recent fairs on this. Now, on the next slide, you can see how this documentation looks like. This is not an eye test, so sorry for this, but you can download these documents also on the Zhaga website. We're going not to read this, but only this gives you an indication of how such documentation looks like. You can download it for individual types. So like for when you have a plug or a receptacle, then you need to download another one. Of course, when you have a luminaire or a bracket, also then you have dedicated letter of confirmations you have to fill in. Okay, so that's only to give you some indication on this. Then what are the authorized test centers? You see here the 8 listed. So maybe it's good to mention that DECRA and Intratec, as regular members, have also participated in the round-robin testing of Book 18 Edition 4. So that means that they were really active involved there. They also have the gauges in-house. So good to mention also that the only dedicated test holders can certify for specific books, and you can find on the website which test centers are allowed to do which book testing. Next to the certification process, test centers can also give you, of course, advice, also direction with product approval, and also in some of them, they are also able to help you with the D4i testing. Okay, so that's about the test centers. Then I think it's good to show also the product database and give some details and background there. At this moment, we have almost 500 luminaire families certified. So we are talking about families. So in practice, these are multiple, many more luminaires, because families are including different CCTs, for example, and different light distributions. Then we have the control devices, now 53, and we have 20 connectors and caps. So that's the ecosystem, which is then also added with the D4i control gear. So there we have more than 700 control gears, indoor and outdoor certified. Okay, up here, the QR code, you can get to the product database of the Zhaga website. You can also find the DALI database. Then we have different filters. We will show you in a minute in a live demo how that works. So we have different filters for product type, for companies, and for the book number. You will see that you can get the product details, and you can also download the certificate in various languages. So now we go to the test, if you can do it live. Yes, there we have. So this is the user interface. So it's you can find it on the product database of Zhaga. You can find the left pull-down menu is the book number. So when you click on it, you will find all the different books. Book 18 is only one of them, but is for now, that's the one which we are discussing at this moment. Then the second one is there you have to, in this case now, select the Zhaga DVI tab. Then you can select the company name. And then finally, you can select the product type. So in this case, for example, it could be a luminaire, but it could also be a module type. So maybe we'll take the top one, just an example. So you can find then the product you are looking for. You can click on the details tab. There you will find the details of the product. And then by selecting the different languages, you can do it in English, but also other languages, you can generate a certificate on the spot, and then you can download it, and then you get the PDF version of the certificate. So it's really easy to get all this information. And it worked even fine live, so that's good. Okay, I think that's almost the final slide. Oh, no, now it's up to you, Martina.
Yes, that's again me. Thank you, Martin and Jonathan. Indeed, as we mentioned also in certification, several type of membership that the Zhaga has, we wanted also to clarify that point. We have three level of membership. You can be a Zhaga community member, and by being a community member, you ensure we give a visibility. You get indeed your logo on the website and link to your website. And you get access to the Zhaga books after 1 year from publication. Then we have the second level, the Zhaga associate member, that some are indeed here in the meeting, I saw in the chat. And by being an associate member, you get access to the Zhaga books from publication. You get the possibility to certify your products, and you participate in the general assembly. Then, of course, by being a Zhaga regular members, you get access to everything that we mentioned above. And of course, you get the possibility to participate in working groups and task force. So indeed, to guide the strategic flow of the Zhaga. And this is in a nutshell the presentation in membership. If you have further questions, of course, feel free to add them in the chat. And now we can give the floor to you in the Q&A. I don't know if, Martin, you had a look at the chat.
Yeah, so there are already a few questions come up. So one question was on the search protection, if that is mandatory or just a recommendation. So maybe you want to answer that one? Or?
Yeah, thanks. So to be able to get Zhaga D4I certified, you will need to have the search protection devices in both the bracket assembly and the luminaire as well. The reason for this is that the Zhaga Book 18 has been released for many years, and up until now it hasn't been designed to survive surges that are associated with those long cable lengths. So we've got control devices out there, we've got drivers, D4I drivers out there already that may not survive those levels of surges. Therefore, the surge protection is mandatory for Zhaga D4I certification. It's reasonably trivial, and we are working with DALI to be able to certify standalone surge protection devices. So hopefully at some point they will be commercially available to install in brackets and luminaires.
Okay, thanks, Jonathan. Then there is a question on if I want to certify a new streetlight luminaire with Zhaga D4I, and then it's the Cobra form factor, not the bracket ready one. Do the components then need to fulfill edition 4, so including DALI 151 and 152, or is edition 3 enough? I think that's a good question, because maybe, Jonathan, you want to answer that one as well?
Sure. So edition 4 is the latest version of Book 18. So going forward, everything will be certified against edition 4. But edition 4 does list bracket ready luminaires and just Zhaga luminaires. So you can still certify Zhaga luminaires, i.e. the Cobra heads that you're speaking to edition 4 that won't require the surge protection devices and won't need the additional DALI parts 151 or 152 included.
Okay, clear. Yeah, there was one practical question if the presentation will be shared. So that was already explained by you, Valentina. So it does not contain confidential information. It will be shared as is. So yeah, then the question, there may be several lighting fixtures installed that have a DALI power supply, but not D4i. It would be a good idea to add a standardization that includes the Zhaga bracket comprising both the 24-volt power supply and the DALI bus power supply, but then integrated in the bracket. So this is an architecture which is not foreseen at this moment. So this is a suggestion, which maybe you want to comment on this, Jonathan?
Yeah. Thanks for the question. So at the moment, that is out of scope of the Zhaga D4i certification. So the extension of the bracket assembly it is assumed that it will be to a luminaire with the D4i driver in there, and therefore the available DALI bus power supply and 24-volt auxiliary power supply will be available. Taking my Zhaga hat off for a moment and speaking as TE, this is something that we recognise that the auxiliary power supply and even the DALI bus power supply might not be available in every solution. So please reach out to me directly, and I'll answer that one for you outside of this group.
Okay, thanks. Then the next slide, next question about the DALI part 151, and I guess it will be the same on 152 if that one is released and available. I think that's maybe, Jonathan, the expected question.
Yeah, so DALI part 151 and 152 is released. It is available in the members area of the DALI website. So you can download them from there. They are working to get them released as IEC standards, but we don't have a time frame for when that will be done. Also, at the moment, we are waiting for DALI to write the test sequences for DALI part 151 and 152 as well, and that's expected to be certainly quarter one of next year, hopefully fairly early on in that, so that people can start to certify devices.
Okay, thanks. Then there is a question on, I understand there is no need for luminaires certified according to edition 3 to be recertified according to edition 4. I think that's
correct. Yeah. There is there is no need to do that unless you want to recertify your product as your luminaire as a bracket ready luminaire.
Yeah. Then a question on the DALI parts 151 and 152. Does the sensor controls needs to fulfill 151 or 152 in the bracket luminaire?
Yes. So going forward, we will only accept control devices that now meet the requirements of part 151 and 152. All existing control devices will keep their certification, but they will only be certified up to edition 3. So going forward, new control devices being certified will need to meet the requirements of 151 or 152. And that's your choice. So you can include the surge protection of 151 in your control device or sensor, or you'll need to do the conform to part 152, which is the robustness. So the robustness speaks to the clamping voltage as defined in part 151, so the surge protection in the bracket assembly, and that your control device will need to be robust enough to meet the requirements of that clamping voltage.
Yeah, and the background why we need this now from this edition onward is that, of course, the modules, we don't know if they are they can be connected to Bracket Ready or the old version. So that's the reason why it's now required to fulfill the 151 or 152 requirements. Then a question on the D4I luminaires, and they are at this moment limited to one type A and one type B. Indeed, I don't think we explained that in much detail, but indeed you only have allowance of one type A in combination with one type B. When will it be possible to connect 2 or 3 type B devices to one ZD4I luminaire? I think it's a good question. I don't think we have any plans to integrate that at this moment. Jonathan, you want to answer this one?
Yeah. So that's, you know, Martin's correct there. We don't have any plans to allow for more than 2 control devices. And one of the governing factors of that is that the D4I communication protocol only allows for 2 control devices on the bus, and this is for hierarchical reasons. So going back to when we were creating edition 2, as Zhaga, we said we needed a communication protocol. DALI was the obvious communication protocol. It is a multi-master, or it does have multi-master functions, meaning you can have more than one control device on the bus, but there was no hierarchy baked into it. So this is what D4I brought, as opposed to DALI 2. They brought in that hierarchy. That hierarchy is needed. You know, for example, if we had a 2-node luminaire with a photocell on the top saying it's daytime, switch the light output off, and then we had a motion sensor on the bottom saying I've detected a person, turn the light on, we would have weird performance and the lights turning on and off at different times or unexpected times of the day. So really, this is why we needed to do that hierarchy, and we do that with the use of the arbitration function as listed in DALI part 351, but that won't work for more than 2 control devices. So to go to 3 is a big technical hurdle to get over. So I'm not really foreseeing us doing that.
Yeah, thanks, Jonathan. Indeed, interoperability is one of the promises, so we really need to ensure that. Okay, then there is a question: could you detail the surge protection function? Yeah, we did not go into a lot of details of the specification. Of course, you can find all the details in the documents, but we can mention that it is up to 800-volt surge protection, but there is much more to say about this. But Jonathan, you want to say a bit on this?
Sure. Yeah. So really, what we're doing is because that induced or that coupled surge can happen anywhere along that long length of cable, we do need to have surge protection devices at either end. So that is in the luminaire, that is in the bracket. The surge protection devices will protect both the DALI bus and the 24-volt rail at both ends, and they will clamp the voltage at a certain level as defined in DALI part 151. So that is the function of those devices.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It is separate from. It's very much separate from mains protection, surge protection that you probably have in your luminaires already. It's not associated with the mains voltage surge protection at all.
Yeah, these are much more tiny devices, so it's indeed good to mention that these are, from a form factor point of view, much smaller devices and much more easy to integrate. Then there is a question on, in case of different suppliers for luminaires and control devices, what's the rule to know where the male-female connector will be used? So is the male with the luminaire or with the control device? So yeah, that's all nicely defined in the book, but maybe Jonathan, you want to explain a bit more?
I think I will just say refer to the book on that one. That is the detail that membership gives you. So please, if you're an associate, if you're a community member, please consider joining as an associate member. That will give you access to that book, and you can see that level of detail.
Okay, then the next question, a question on the DALI part 151 for the SPD. All SPD mounted on ready bracket luminaire for Zhaga certification 4.0 have necessary this certification. I think that's similar question as we had before. For certification 4, it's really necessary, the SPD functionality. If I have a book 3 certified luminaire, standard, no bracket, with a generical SPD, I have a problem relating to certification. I think when it's the question on backwards compatibility, I think you will keep your book 3 certification. When you want to go for certification of according to edition book 18 edition 4, then of course you need to have additional requirements. Do you understand the question? It's a bit cryptic, Jonathan, but do you understand the question?
I think you've answered it. I believe it is the same as before. So again, edition 4 of book 18 has 2 classifications of luminaires. So the standard Zhaga luminaire and a bracket ready luminaire. So going forwards, applying for certification, you can apply for either the bracket ready, which will need the extra surge protection and the connector, or you can go for the standard the standard product, the standard luminaire, which doesn't need the surge protection, doesn't need the connector, but you have to demonstrate that the DALI bus and the 24 rail is contained within the luminaire.
Yep. Okay, I think that's it. Did we miss any question? I think we addressed all of them. There was one question on a specific requirement on the product shown. I think there, yeah, we will forward that question to the owner of that one. So we will address that one offline.
One more question coming, Martin.
Yes. Yeah, can I have a bracket ready with 151 controls?
I'm not sure I understand that fully, but the bracket ready, will have the DALI part 151 surge, will have the surge protection in that, and therefore you will then be able to connect control devices to that luminaire or that bracket.
Yeah, indeed, a bit credit. So when I read it, can I have a bracket ready luminaire with 151 control? So the bracket ready luminaires needs to have the surge protection. So I think the answer is yes, but it is a bit cryptic. Maybe when this answer is not satisfying, maybe you can reach out to us offline. That's also, by the way, a request to all of you. When there are more questions after this webinar, you can always reach out to us. And maybe, Valentina, you have also a final slide to where...
Yes, indeed. As Martin and Jonathan mentioned, feel free, of course, to contact us afterwards. Here you can find my email, but I will send you an email indeed tomorrow with the slides and the recording, so you have our contact. And of course, you are invited to stay in touch with us, visit our website. You see indeed the product database that Martin showed you is a very useful resource. And then subscribe to the newsletter, so you'll be invited to our next events and webinar, and follow us on LinkedIn, where you can see indeed more regular update of our activities.
Yeah.
With this,
Maybe, Valentina, we can quickly answer the last question.
Of course.
Because it's a nice question, because it shows what we do standardize and what we don't standardize. So requirements of mechanical strengths, that is typically an item which is what we call the performance domain. So that's typically something what we don't specify in Zhaga. So and that's a typical performance item. So we don't specify that. Okay.
Great. Then I don't know if you see other questions that you want to answer, Martin.
Yeah, there is one more. On purpose of the total protection of the luminaire, can I use only one SPD for the internal luminaire and bracket? Can I put this on? Yeah, so there the answer is no. So you need to have at both ends of the line, you need to have the SPD protection. So hopefully that finalizes it.
Yeah, indeed. Now all attendees, I guess, received their answer. But again, get in touch with us, please, with whatever question you have. And thank you a lot for joining today's webinar. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Lots of questions. Thank you for the engagement.
Yeah, good interaction. Thanks. Bye-bye.